Thanks so much, Kathy, for all that fantastic information. So let's open it up for questions and discussion.
I have a question about vaccinating pregnant women. If we do have pregnant patients that are interested in getting vaccinated, are they obligated to enroll in a registry, and how do we do that?
They're not required to enroll in a registry. The manufacturer for whichever vaccine they get would love for them to be enrolled in a registry, and it allows for better follow-up for them over the course of time. I know that UW actually has a registry that they've started, and actually I heard about it from one of our SAW work group folks. We can send information out about that registry if people, again, it's voluntary process for enrolling, but we can send information out to that for you for awareness. Okay.
Kathy, I have a question for you. How does DOH get this type of information out to the enrolled vaccinators? For example, this new guidance around any type of immediate allergic reaction being a contraindication for a second dose of an mRNA vaccine. Do you have a way to communicate with them directly so that everyone understands that immediately and gets that kind of critical, time-sensitive information?
Great question. So a couple of things that we're doing with that. One is we have a newsletter that's going out weekly now. We put this came out yesterday. We put it in yesterday's newsletter. It has a clinical corner, and this information was included in that. We posted on a system that is used for LHJs to share information out so that they can access it. We also generally post it out, send it out to providers who are enrolled as COVID vaccine providers. So when there's a significant change in something, so for example, last week when we sent out the 6th dose information, we send it out to everybody who's enrolled in IIS, all of the providers that are enrolled as vaccine providers. We also share it with, I did a presentation on last Tuesday and again last week on with Washington State Health Hospital Association. We've done presentations, so we're trying to make sure that we're disseminating out the information with the idea that as much detail as possible is given, and people may get it more than once, but we prefer them to get it more than once and to not give it enough. And then we're updating information on the Department of Health website as well. So.
That's really great. Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that you have a way to directly contact each enrolled provider. So that's really good to know.
Yes, thank you.
So, Kathy or Michelle, I got this question 3 times now in the last couple days, and I know you answered me on it, but maybe it's something we could share with the group about. Folks that were given the first dose of the vaccine, then actually got sick, were confirmed with a PCR for COVID, and what is the status of then the second dose? Do we vaccinate them? Do we not vaccinate? And I know the answer, but maybe you guys want to share that with this group too, because it's becoming a pretty common question to me. And I appreciate the work, Kathy and Michelle, you're doing when I give you all these questions. Thanks.
Michelle, do you want to take that?
Oh, Kathy, you go ahead. I compiled your information and gave it to Scott. So,
yeah. So the answer would be, I would say, as a general rule, we're seeing, and I'm hoping the answer is the same as what we shared, but I would say yes. They should probably go ahead and get a second dose. We don't have the threshold for the vaccine, for effectiveness of the vaccine yet. But from my perspective, we're seeing the drift of natural titers for individuals who have had COVID to drop at the 2-month or 3-month mark. And so I think initially, I don't think it's absolutely required, but I don't think that there's any harm there.
Yeah. So also, Kathy, sorry, you didn't know the other piece of the question is timing of that. So we would want somebody to go in for their second dose after they're done with their isolation period. And the concern there, if I understand from CDC, is not about worries about increased side effects or any piece about that, but just making sure there's no increased risk of transmission, that somebody who is in an isolation period for COVID, that they're going in to seek that vaccination. So just want to clarify that piece. And I'm assuming this is all linked well on our website to the actual CDC guidance about.
Correct. Yeah, we try to make sure that it's linked so that there's no, so that as things change, we make sure changes get updated as well.
This Chris Chen, I have a quick comment from a communications and equity
Actually,
perspective.
before we go there, can I follow up on this topic before we change topics?
Sure, of course.
Go for it.
Thanks. This is a little bit tricky, I think, this situation, because CDC currently says that you can defer for 3 months after a PCR confirmed COVID infection before being vaccinated. And most people feel that immunity from natural infection is persistent for at least 3 months. And new studies are showing 8 months and longer as we get more experience. We're also hearing increasing reports from healthcare providers that patients who have a history of PCR confirmed COVID are having more severe reactions to vaccination. Grade 3, lots of grade 3. And they're very concerned about vaccinating people who say I've had recent COVID. So to issue a blanket recommendation to proceed with vaccination after the isolation period, I think I would like to talk a little bit more about and the implications of informing patients about the potential for increased reactogenicity, serious reactogenicity, and also I guess severe is the word, severe reactogenicity, and then also the option, whether they should have the option to wait several months before getting their next dose. I don't know the right answer. I would definitely want to talk with Sarah Mbeye, who's the CDC's clinical lead on this. But I do worry about vaccinating people shortly after a confirmed infection with respect to adverse events.
Thanks, Jeff. That the language we're using is straight out of the ACIP guidelines. So I know you're on the working group. I'd be interested to think about to learn more about, and we can do that too. But we could probably work on this offline to think about, is there going to be different changes in that? And then as we understand more, in the past with VAC, if we thought there's additional detail or clinical guidance we want to give on top of ACIP guidance, that has been a role of the VAC in the past, and this is something that we can look into more to see if this is something that that VAC would like to put additional clinical guidance out.
Yeah, that sounds good, because right now it's just an option. You give the patient the option to wait 3 months, and I'm wondering if we should be a little more directed, tell them that they're increased risk for adverse events, not life-threatening, but significant, and the fact that they're likely protected. And I brought this up to CDC. They're not really tracking adverse events in people who have recent COVID, strangely enough. So I'm not sure how we're going to get more information. And I don't know, you may want to solicit this from some of your vaccinators and ask them what they're seeing and when they vaccinate people who have a confirmed recent COVID infection. I got spontaneous reports from local healthcare providers that they were seeing very severe reactions in people who had a history of COVID compared to those who didn't.
But the reports that you've heard, were those primarily with people who got a first dose after confirmed COVID, or a second dose? That is, they got a dose, got COVID, and then got a second dose, or is it kind of a mix?
No, the only reports that I have were for people who had a history of remote COVID and who had the first dose.
Okay.